Hello there YouTubers, it's Robert Llewellyn with a quick making do update. I'm sitting in the sunshine in my low impact studio. It's called The Garden. It's very nice here today. You may hear the great crowds of swallows that are all gathering on the line. They've had a lovely time. There's a huge family of them live in, well, more than one family. I guess about 5 families live in our garage. And I think all the babies have flitted out and they're all flitting about practicing catching flies in the air, which is lovely. And Daisy the dog is lying just behind me over there in the shade. Not behind me, behind you, because you're there. She's just over there. Stay there, Daisy. Don't start knocking things over. And it's all very nice today. It's been a lovely day today. First time for a while. We've had our slightly damp summer, as many of you will be aware. Many of you who are damp. The water's back on now down in the valley, which is very nice. People can flush their loos. They can't drink the water yet, but at least they can flush their loos, because, you know, that worries me. When you can't flush your loo, you know, that requires drastic action. Yeah, so this is now very close to the 8th month of making do. I've done 7 months now and I'm fine. As you can see, my little microphone clip has snapped, and so I've had to stick it together with tape. Quite a lot of my life is held together with tape. Luckily I had a big roll of tape, gaffer tape, very strong sticky tape, which is holding quite a lot of things together in my life. I miss newspapers a bit. Occasionally I'd quite like to read a newspaper. I mean, I've read some newspapers, I've read other people's. But I'm going to stick it out now. I mean, it'd be pointless getting this far and then kind of giving up and going, oh, I'll go and buy something, you know. So I've managed to stick with it. And it's amazing what you can botch together. We had a chair break in the kitchen the other day, which is, you know, I mean, I would always have mended that, but I had to mend it with, you know, I had to find old screws, take screws out of other things. I didn't have the right drill bit. So, you know, normally all those things you do, go and buy another drill bit and buy a packet of screws and stuff like that. And I managed to do it. I used big screws. So it's really held together. I mean, I'm talking screws that long, great big things, great big drill bit, because they only had one big drill bit, so I drilled a huge hole and put in a huge screw into it. So it'll either completely collapse now or it'll be fine. The other night I was watching Newsnight, which is for those of you outside the UK, Newsnight is I guess it's a non-tabloid television news programme. It's quite, it's longer. They go into stories in a bit more depth. And I quite enjoy watching Newsnight. And there's a very famous presenter called Jeremy Paxman, who's the main presenter on Newsnight and has a great reputation for ripping politicians to pieces. He's a very impressive man. I met him once. His son is a big Scrap Heap fan. And he's a great guy, but quite scary. You wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of him. And then there's this other man who presents it, who I've always thought was very good, called Gavin Esler, who's a sort of similar kind of clever English chap. And Gavin Esler, there was a report on Newsnight the other night about the Democratic debate that was held on YouTube, where people on YouTube put up videos to ask Democratic candidates their opinions on various subjects. And a lot of people, obviously, in the old media made a lot of fun of this, but in fact a lot of the questions, I've seen some of them, a lot of the questions are very sensible, very good questions, and you know, certainly opened the debate somewhat outside the kind of very controlled and contrived areas that politicians would normally create for themselves. And there was a report about this on Newsnight, and at the end of it Gavin Esler made a little quip about YouTube, and I couldn't help being slightly offended by it. And I think, Gavin Esler, you're a bit of a prat, mate. And it was clearly what he revealed was effectively the old media fear of this new phenomena, because he just basically said, well, who would watch YouTube anyway? It's full of a load of old rubbish, you know, dogs on skateboards. It would have been that kind of comment, as though there is nothing interesting on YouTube. And I'd be the first to admit that there's a vast torrent of utter bilge and rubbish on YouTube, and there's no question of it, but there are some extraordinary people doing extraordinary things on YouTube that would never have got on mainstream telly, shouldn't be on mainstream telly. They wouldn't be any good on mainstream telly. They could only work on YouTube. It was a very interesting comment that he suddenly made, and I kind of sat up and went, hang on, Gavin, you pillock, what are you talking about? So Gavin is wrong, and you know, when your kind of trusted newsreader makes a prattish comment like that, it kind of put me right off. I thought, I'm not going to bother watching Newsnight anymore. It's rubbish. They don't know what they're talking about. Plus, there's been this huge hoo-ha in this country about the phone-ins, which is obviously, you know, one of my pet hates. You know, the shows that have, you know, phone in and vote. Big Brother being really the classic example, I think. And that, although Big Brother, I don't think has been fined, but a lot of the companies that run phone-ins where you phone in and vote, I mean, I don't, you know, I'm not even proud to know that I knew it was a con and a setup and a rip-off. It doesn't make any difference. You know, it was never a conspiracy theory. you phoned in and you voted and it made no difference. And it still makes no difference. And if you phone in and vote on Big Brother, believe me, it makes no difference. You could phone in 100 million people could phone in to vote some pillock off Big Brother. It wouldn't make any difference. They've decided who stays and who goes weeks before you waste your money phoning in. At last it's been exposed. I mean, I knew for years that, particularly with Big Brother, which is my bête noire, black beast, for those who don't know what that means, you know, the thing I hate the most is, because it's a con. I mean, I don't care about the programme, I don't watch it, you know, I'm not interested in it, but because it lures people into thinking they have some control over it, and it's reality TV. And it's time that was blown apart, that it's completely fabricated. Nothing, believe me, nothing that happens on Big Brother isn't planned. They're told to do it and they're paid money afterwards. They're actors in a show. The idea is great. I love the idea of what Big Brother is supposed to be. You know, like a social experiment, but the way it's turned out is horrible. So yes, there's that reality TV, and that something then happened, and it's kind of close to home for me. RDF, the company, RDF Media, the company that makes Scrap Heap, have recently been in a lot of trouble. And they make reality TV shows. They make things like Wife Swap, they make Scrap Heap, which in a sense is a kind of reality TV. It's a factual entertainment show. And what you see on Scrap Heap is two teams of engineers that build something out of rubbish they find on a scrap heap, and then they test it out, and then it does stuff. And that takes 2 days to film, and you watch it in an hour. So editing takes place, and there's the man, he finds an engine in the scrapyard, and the next thing you see it working. Well, there's probably been 5 hours between him finding that engine and you seeing it working, but you know, we can't show a 22-hour program, so it's edited, it's cut down. And so then RDF make a documentary about Annie Leibovitz, who's a famous photographer, taking pictures of Her Majesty the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II. And she goes in to have her picture taken, and Annie Leibovitz takes the pictures, and they've got hours and hours of footage, so they edit it. And they edit it for the highlights to show the new BBC season that's coming up. And when they edit it, they kind of think it's a bit boring, so they cut a sequence where the Queen Elizabeth is walking out of the room where they're taking the pictures in a bit of a hurry, and they make it look like she's storming out in a huff. It didn't happen. It's exactly the same thing. It's like the guy finding the engine, and then, you know, 10 minutes later, or 2 minutes later, the engine works. I mean, I think when you piss off the Queen, shit happens. And what RDF did, which was mind-bogglingly stupid, but that's what they're used to doing. They're used to editing things like Wife Swap. You know, the woman has a row one day and is in a bad mood. 3 days later, the guy's sulking in the other room. They cut that together and it looks like they've had a row that day. You know, that's what their job is. They make reality TV, which is about as real as a very unreal sausage. It's bollocks. And so then they did it with the Queen, and that's interesting how that caught them out and they tripped over. Because, you know, nobody did anything wrong or illegal or bad or evil. They just made it a bit more dramatic, you know. Who wants to watch the Queen sitting still while someone takes pictures of her? Dull. It's boring. It's enough from me for now. If you have been, thanks for watching.